Hello all and welcome back. I hope you're having a fantastic weekend. Lots to cover again in today's video, as I'll be looking at the top 5 projects that I'm currently interested in within the Hedera ecosystem. And all of these have the potential to probably be sort of 100x gems in the sense of the word. I want to kick the video off by saying as well that channel memberships are now live. So my channel is now available for memberships. Not asking any of you in particular to join. However, if you want to support the channel in general, you can join. I've just put up one tier, a legend tier. You get some loyalty badges and obviously priority reply to comments. And I will aim in the future to roll out additional features for those that do decide to pledge a little bit of support to the channel. That being said, not asking or requiring anyone to do this at all. It's just if you want to support a little bit, you can choose to do so now. Let's just jump back over to the Fear and Greed Index to kick this video off, just do a bit of a macro market sentiment. We're now back in the fear zone. So yesterday and the previous week, we were sort of in the 30s and 40s, the 20s and 30s for extreme fear. We're now just in the fear zone. As I said, it looks like we're going through this sort of retracement cycle. And looking into the next couple of weeks, I do think we'll start moving back out of this. Equity will start flowing back into the markets. As I mentioned previously, many times, obviously the crypto markets are heavily correlated to the equities markets in general. The equities markets aren't performing too well at the moment off the back of the recent Fed announcements where they are trimming $9 trillion from their balance sheets. Over time, effectively, once that happens, people will begin to re-risk their portfolios. After an extended session of de-risking, we will see that volatility come back to the crypto markets, and hopefully it would be positive towards the upside. So that's kind of the general market sentiment at the moment. Obviously, I'm still continuing to average into the projects that I mention a lot on this channel. Of course, HBAR, Quant, Engine Coin, Rune, plenty of other projects that I average into. Stellar as well at the moment is a fantastic buy. Ripple, I've started purchasing as well off the back of the SEC versus XRP case. It's looking more and more likely that we're going to see a resolution around the middle of this year. If that does happen, obviously XRP is going to have an absolute rocket ride towards the upside once that's been dismissed. Talking about Hedera in general as well, and the coupon bureau. So I've covered them several times now in different videos. Obviously, they are using the Hedera ecosystem and Hashgraph in order to support the coupon markets globally. They have now paired with 𝗥𝗙𝗙𝗥𝗥𝗥𝗥. Universal coupons are now being integrated with Toshiba Commerce, whose clients include 60% of the top 25 retailers worldwide. We look forward to being a part of accelerating adoption to this new standard. So that was branded from Toshiba Commerce. So we can see here that the coupon bureau themselves are partnering with some of the biggest names in the space in general. This is obviously a fantastic use case for HBAR on the Hedera ecosystem. Of course, all the transaction fees will be paid in HBAR, and this is what brings that transaction per second metric, or TPS, and daily transactions to the ecosystem. Once we start seeing that, that's when we probably will begin to see the price appreciation. As soon as these big projects roll out and come on board, they will be acquiring massive amounts of HBAR in general in order to facilitate those transactions over the long term. And it's in their best interest. They are incentivized to purchase HBAR at these lower price points because in the future, due to the fact that the HBAR fees are pegged to that US dollar amount of $0.0001 per transaction, buying at a cheaper HBAR price currently in US dollars in nominal amount allows them to process more transactions in the future if HBAR appreciates in price. So they are completely incentivized to pick up large quantities of HBAR, and this is what we'll begin to see happen as soon as these projects roll out. So incredibly bullish again for the Hedera ecosystem. Daily, weekly, we're seeing all of these projects being developed. The HBAR Foundation are also supporting new projects and e-commerce and big business solutions. We're also seeing rollouts in the DeFi space as well, where there are now incentives for Ethereum application developers to move across to Hedera. So it's all happening. April is definitely the month, and May/June is probably where we're going to begin to see massive amounts of movement within the HBAR price. So fantastic to see. Talking about Hedera as well and their mainnet upgrades, just how quick, fast, scalable, secure the network is in general. Christian here tweeted out a couple of days ago the total network downtime for the Hedera upgrade that went live on the 15th was 3 minutes and 9 seconds from start to beginning. There was no rest period in between. That was the complete downtime, super conservative forecasting downtime so that developers in the ecosystem can plan accordingly. These downtime windows should be very short moving forward, and they are only getting faster. This is crazy to see in general, that they're able to basically perform a mainnet upgrade in less than 5 minutes. And this just again goes to show why they focus on scalability and why Hedera is a much better scalable solution. You think if Hedera is being used by lots of big businesses, they can perform upgrades to their mainnet systems within less than 5 minutes. It means their applications have zero effective downtime in terms of the real world, which is incredibly important for these big scale platforms. There's plenty of infrastructure workarounds at the moment to prevent mainnet or downtime within applications. You might not have to need to do that if you've only got a 3 minute upgrade window. Really, really important stuff to take on board. Now, as you guys have probably seen in the title of the video, it was 5 projects effectively to watch within the Hedera ecosystem. If you guys have been around for a little while, none of you should be particularly surprised about these projects, as I've mentioned them in several different videos. However, I wanted to pull them all together into one sort of space. Some of them have tokens that are already live that you can purchase. Some will be going live towards the end of April, and obviously there'll be plenty of more content coming out about how to pick up those tokens. However, these are all these early tokens, and you may have heard from previous ecosystems that you've potentially seen if you've been in crypto for a while. However, a lot of people will say the money really is to be made within the projects beneath the actual solution. So obviously HBAR being the solution token. However, the sort of 100x gems will be the projects that sit underneath the HBAR token themselves. So it will be tokens like Source that goes live. So that being said, the first one to obviously mention is SAUCERSWAP. Obviously, I've got a video talking about how to get early access to the Source token. You can claim every 8 hours via the Discord server. You need to own one or more of the Planck Epoch collectibles, or there's bonuses in terms of an additional NFT if you purchase 3 or the complete set of the Epoch collectibles, so the Gravity, Weak and Strong nuclear ones. Currently, the total set will set you back $2,000. These are always pegged to the US dollar amount, so whether HBAR goes up or down, there's no real incentive to wait for price movements in the HBAR, as the Hedera HBAR value will change based on its nominal underlying value. I.e., it doesn't matter if you buy today or tomorrow, effectively it's going to cost you $2,000 for a complete set. This is going to be an absolutely massive project. I'm still certain that they will be the first Dexs to launch. They've got some other competition, and that's another project that I'll be mentioning later in the video. That being said, what SAUCERSWAP are doing is fantastic to see. They are all about security and maximizing features on Hedera. So their team in general are really focused on making sure that their project not only launches successfully, but with tons of features to boot immediately to support DeFi on this growing ecosystem Hedera. This is definitely a project to watch going into the future. And like I said, I'm hoping that we don't see a H2 launch. We actually see a launch sometime in May, and that coincides with the rewards that they have left. Moving on, the next project that I wanted to talk about, and again, shouldn't surprise any of you, as I have done live streams with the team before, many videos covering them as soon as they sort of came out of the woodwork with their initial marketing. And of course, that's HEDERASTARTER. So HEDERASTARTER is slightly different. SAUCERSWAP being a Dexs system, HEDERASTARTER is actually a launch pad. Now, historically, on other ecosystems, launchpads have done incredibly well. There are plenty of launchpads on the Binance Smart Chain, and this was effectively, or this enables you to get early access to new and upcoming projects within the ecosystem. And via that, you can get early allocation of tokens from those projects at heavily subsidized rates in order to support the launches of those projects. And of course, because you've managed to get in early, typically if the project does well and there is a price appreciation, you can make 10, 20, 100, 1,000x gains on some of these projects. So this will really support the incubation phases of those projects within the Hedera ecosystem. So what they're doing effectively is facilitating that growth through aiding those new projects coming to the Hedera ecosystem. Really bullish project in general. That being said as well, they do also have other elements to the project. So they're not just a launchpad system, they're also a DAO, and they will have several different tokens available from the project that you guys will be able to pick up when they go live. And now, as far as I'm aware, we will see the HSTART token go live towards the end of April. Of course, there'll be more videos on the channel talking about that when it goes live. However, I want to just quickly read an excerpt from their manifesto talking about the HSTART token and some of its purposes. So the native token of the HEDERASTARTER launchpad is the HSTART token. The token governs two primary entities comprising HEDERASTARTER, the HDAO and the HPAD. The HDAO is an entity by which new investors stake the HSTART token to be able to vote on projects' entrance into the launchpad portion of HEDERASTARTER. The HPAD, within the HDAO, staking the HSTART token gives members access to the initial lucrative fundraising rounds, which have historically been limited to VCs, venture capitalists, angel investors, and funds. The second entity, the HPAD, has 5 tiers which are based on a user's staked amount of HSTART. Each tier gives higher weighted odds of participation in the IDOs of the projects that have successfully made it through the HDAO incubator. 16x for the highest tier, down to 1x for the basic tier. Staking HSTART also gives users passive rewards in the form of community innovation pools, which distribute a portion of the tokens to all HPAD stakers from every successful launch. So we can see here the HSTART token itself has tons of different utility and is the method by which gives you access to these projects that are going through the incubation phases to pick up those tokens early. So there is real incentive to hold HSTART tokens and large quantities of them, as it gives you higher odds of being able to participate. So this is one project as well that is something to watch. I'd recommend for all of these projects that you guys go and follow them on their socials, for example, Twitter, as they put out lots of good information, and hopefully you'll get the drop early. Failing that, of course, make sure you're subscribed, as any of that information that does come out will be covered on this channel as soon as it's available. And I'll be showing you guys either how to pick up these tokens, participate in the platforms, or get involved to begin with. Don't forget, we're incredibly early across all of these. Now, the other project, or the third project that I want to talk about, is actually one of the first incubation projects that HEDERASTARTER are doing, and that's Tangent Finance. Again, something that I mentioned on the channel. All of these projects I mentioned on the channel previously. Tangent Finance is a 3rd generation trading hub. So effectively it's a DEX. It boils down to becoming a DEX. With their mascot Tango, you'll probably see mentioned quite a lot on their socials. Now, the idea of this DEX is obviously to launch as being a swapping pair for different tokens on the Hedera token service. So very similar to SAUCERSWAP, and it's all up in the air at the moment as to whether SAUCERSWAP or Tangent will release first. Tangent have been releasing lots of different video teasers recently of their platform. It looks and appears to be in working order, and that they may be gearing up for a launch very soon, sometime around the end of April, potentially the beginning of May. This would also coincide with that HSTART token that's going live. Now, themselves as well, they have a underlying governing token called Tangent, so $TNGNT, and they talk about this bonding to all curves of this token. So this token effectively facilitates several different functions. So the first being staking. So Tangent natively staked on platforms are eligible to receive additional Tangent tokens via platform buybacks. Obviously, trading fee discount tiers will be implemented based on staking size, allowing users to significantly reduce their trading fees, i.e. if you hold Tangent, you will have less transaction fees to pay when swapping tokens on the platform. So a fantastic use of Tangent in general. Boosting as well is a secondary feature. So long-term staking of Tangent allows all users to boost their rewards by providing liquidity. So vote locking Tangent allows users to acquire voting power to participate in the Tangent DAO and further boost their liquidity pool rewards for specific pools. Tangent Finance LPs are rewarded in Tangent via a constant rate of inflation and distributed across LPs in a manner similar to standard liquidity mining. Every pool in Tangent Finance has a gauge. Gauges define the allocation of Tangent reward emissions. Users lock their Tangent to vote on increases to a pool's gauge weight, which is factored into the overall Tangent reward emission, with Tangent being distributed based on every pool gauge weight. So we can see here that effectively the larger your pool size and the more that you have staked, you get these boosting and gauge bonuses from that, i.e. a multiplier of some kind if you hold more of the token. So standard incentives there for holding large amounts of these tokens. The fourth use case of this token being the nodes. So Tangent's distributed L2 node trade processing infrastructure provides all the users of the protocol with a large enough stake of Tangent the opportunity to deploy their own L2 nodes, further distributes and enhances the Tangent protocol and rewards them with additional Tangent in the process, i.e. you can run a node on Tangent yourself, an L2 node, and you will receive additional rewards as part of doing so. And the fifth and final one being voting and governance. So users again staked have the ability to then vote on DAO proposals, pool and protocol parameters. So this will be things like setting certain rates for certain pools, pairings, all sorts of different things. Something to note here as well is they've got time lockers, so they have additional incentives as FX Tangent stakers earn additional rewards, have access to boosting of their LP and increased voting power. Users can unlock tokens before the expected maturation date for an additional fee. So we can see here that users can vote lock Tangent, converting it into FX Tangent, which increases their overall power in the protocol. So again, fairly standard for an ecosystem in the decentralized finance world. You lock stuff up for a longer period, you receive more back in reward. In terms of the roadmap, we can see here Q2 2022, so this is where we are now. Private testnet launch, liquidity provision and mining, first and second audits, factory contracts, public launch is also in Q2, major LM campaigns and adding at least 10 multi-sig key holders, moving into Q3 and Q4, so the latter half of 2022, DAO governance tools, weights, decentralizing the government, so this will be those nodes, decentralized addition of computational nodes, so they go in hand, and then Tangent staking facilities. So again, really bullish project. Fairly similar to SAUCERSWAP. There are differences between them. However, obviously this as well is being incubated by HEDERASTARTER, so sits in that sort of ecosystem that HEDERASTARTER are building. Regardless, once these Dexs do begin to go live, this opens up tons of different potential for all of the HTS tokens that are currently on the Hedera ecosystem. So for example, you'll be able to, trade your HBAR-X for Source and vice versa, buy and sell tokens at will, very similar to platforms like Uniswap in the Ethereum ecosystem, PancakeSwap on the Binance Smart Chain. And this is where really the ecosystem growth will come from once either Tangent or SAUCERSWAP goes live. That's when the rewards really for early holders will begin. If I then flick over, the sort of fourth project that I wanted to talk about is HSUITE. So again, they're very similar to the previous two projects we've mentioned in terms of Dexs, so SAUCERSWAP and Tangent. However, HSUITE have done something slightly different, and they've actually built a decentralized finance tool to enhance the Hedera network without requiring any smart contracts whatsoever. So HBAR Suite is the first carbon negative DAO to utilize the innovative smart node technology deployed on top of the Hedera network. The SNs allow us to be infinitely scalable while bypassing all smart contract limitations and risks. So obviously currently, you guys, if you have been watching the videos, you'll know that SAUCERSWAP haven't released yet because they're still waiting for some of the HIPs, the Hedera improvement proposals for certain elements of the contracts that they require. HSUITE have basically bypassed all of this by building these SNs on top of the Hedera network and not utilizing smart contracts whatsoever. So very interesting project in general. If you watched a video that I put out a couple of days ago, obviously you'll be aware of HSTART, which have launched via this HSUITE network, and it's pretty much kind of like a meme token test case. Naturally, there'll probably be some other utility for that project in general. However, they have launched via HSUITE, and it seems to have been fairly successful in testing the platform's capabilities, which appear to be fairly robust at face value anyway. HSUITE's goals are ease of accessibility in the world of decentralized finance, of course being a must, achieving mass adoption of usage, including those who may not be quite familiar with the cryptocurrency technology in general. HBAR Suite will provide extended accessibility in order to have the regular folk who wish to join the network. So if we actually move over to the roadmap they've got on their page, we can see that they are also gearing up for a launch here. So their initial token offering in Q2 of 2022, and the launchpad apply to launch your own token sale Q2 of 2022, and the Dexs as well will be Q2 of 2022. So within the next couple of weeks to months, we will begin to see this project roll out as well. Like I said, sort of the third Dexs in the works effectively. If we look at the allocation details, we can see they've already done an IPO, an immediate pledge offer, which have tokens that are locked up at a heavily subsidized rate.
Round one, which they mentioned their roadmap would be coming soon, 6% max supply, so 3 billion tokens will be offered in the ITO at $0.0005 a piece. Round one ITO tokens will not be locked. This will raise adequate funds to complete 6 months of heavy marketing strategy and development. So again, once this goes live, obviously I'll be showing you guys how to pick up some of these tokens if you wish to do so. Could be quite a nice bet in terms of the future development of the ecosystem. Something to be said as well is that realistically, only one of these Dexs will probably be the big name player in the space, unless there are some additional features that make them stand out from the rest. So like I said previously, if you think of other chains, Uniswap realistically is the main player in that ecosystem, SPOOKYSwap on Phantom, and PancakeSwap on the Binance Smart Chain. Really, there's only one big name to each of those ecosystems, and I suspect something similar will happen to Hedera, particularly over the long term. However, it's not a bad plan per se to invest small amounts into each of these platforms, just in case one of them is much more successful than the other. Of course, this is something that's risky. You need to do your own research and make sure you understand what you're actually purchasing. Now, the fifth and final project, which is definitely a hidden gem in the Hedera ecosystem, is DOVU. Now, obviously, this is not a Dex project at all. This actually aligns more with the real world and in terms of being an enterprise use case, which is one of Hedera's main selling points. So DOVU will obviously help offset your carbon footprint. So if your business needs to meet ESG goals, which are massive in the European Union, and I think are becoming a more important thing over in the United States, for example, DOVU effectively enables you to gain a competitive advantage by positioning yourself as a sustainability conscious business. You can increase your revenue via it as users are prepared to pay more for carbon neutral services and products. And it also future-proofs any new businesses, as the cost of offsetting corporate carbon emissions is expected to surge tenfold over the next decade. I think that's actually an understatement. It's going to surge a lot more than tenfold. So the idea of DOVU is providing a marketplace that supports carbon capture across the planet, impartial soil scientists to calculate the data, and distributed ledger technology, Hedera Hashgraph, to verify its authenticity. So where's the carbon stored? In farmland soil as plants, microbes, and other organic matter. The potential is incredible. We all need to reduce our carbon footprint and offsets, and they're an important tool to balance the utilization of unavoidable carbon. To get involved, all you need to do is purchase a DOVU certificate, and like that, you've offset your carbon. So the idea being is they are providing a decentralized carbon marketplace effectively to offset carbon footprints of these businesses. The potential of this project is absolutely phenomenal. It's something that I've covered many times in the past on the channel, and it's something that I will continue to mention on the channel. That being said as well, just wanted to look at some key stats recently from DOVU. Obviously it's had a bit of a price pullback, but we can begin to see that there is a price appreciation on the horizon. We've seen some big ETH whales come into the space. There was an 11.2 ETH buy the other day on the 16th of April, pushing the price up nearly 14%. And I think this will continue into the future. Obviously, they are rolling out their staking rewards as well, which I think in the early phases currently sat at around 30%, which is really nice to see. And not only that, I will leave this link down in the description. I'm not going to cover it as it's quite technical. However, there's been a recent, towards the end of last year, so it's fairly recent, science paper about automated regressional markets, or ARMs, which is a new price discovery mechanism for semi-fungible assets. And in this semi-fungible asset class sits renewable energy and carbon offsets, as well as carbon removal. So we can see the potential benefits and global impact of arming energy markets, which is something that DOVU sits heavily within, and potentially is something that they will utilize in the future in order to integrate all of these enterprise solutions. And this could provide automation that would allow massive scaling and expansion of energy markets and trades, accelerating market development and providing the potential for future markets. Costs could also be reduced for individuals, small energy producers, or cooperatives who can more easily aggregate and diffuse power generation networks to provide collateral or tokenized assets in exchange for access to financing. So this is a sort of fantastic research paper that I urge you all to read, as it's something that could definitely be the future, and it's being built and looked at on top of the Hedera ecosystem anyway. Apologies for the long video. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Wanted to cover these 5 projects sort of in a single take, so that they're available to anyone that comes across it. Obviously there'll be more content about these running into the future.
Until then, though, I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Drop a comment if you've got something to say. Obviously, make sure you're subscribed and you're following me over on Twitter. Lots more information coming in the future. Until then, I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.